Welcome to another episode of our Poor Decisions Cellar Tours, where we visit wine enthusiasts and see their collections. This time, we made a trek across the country.
We're finally here in Seattle. Got an early start this morning. 2:55 was when the alarm was set for.
I slept the whole way on the plane.
How are you feeling?
Tired.
We're so excited though that we're going to see our next cellar, and it's going to be a really spectacular collection of more than 5,000 bottles. So we're on our way.
After landing in Seattle, we drove over to Eastern Washington to meet Whitman.
So just go.
Yeah, do whatever you want.
Hi, I'm Whitman, and this is my wine cellar.
A Harvard-educated lawyer who, after having a successful career in LA, decided to move back to his small-town roots in the Northwest. With more than 5,250 bottles in his cellar, I think it's fair to say that even Whitman knows there might be a problem.
Like many wine drinkers, I don't have a drinking problem, but I do have a buying problem.
And did Pops finally meet his match when it comes to his wine obsession? And how in the world was Pops going to be able to come up with a surprise bottle for Whitman that he didn't already own? Take the tour with us. And don't forget to comment or subscribe if you'd like to see more cellar tours from us in the future. Whitman, thank you so much for allowing us into your home and taking a look at your gorgeous cellar. How does one even get started collecting wine?
Sure. So I started collecting wine in around 2008. I had wine at parties or cocktail events, but had never really bought bottles of wine for myself. And there was a grocery store near our house in LA at the time called Gelson's, and I said, I want a nice bottle of wine. I'm going to spend $50. That's going to be a really great bottle of wine. So I went and bought a bottle of 2005 Honing Cabernet from Napa. And it was just a complete paradigm shift where drinking that wine, smelling it, I was getting black currant, I was getting mint, I was getting the richness of the wood, and then just the texture of the wine was so much better than any wine I'd had at that point. I started buying a few more bottles. I got up to about 40 bottles. I had those in a closet at the house in Los Angeles. At some point I said, well, storing wine in a closet's not optimal. I should get a wine refrigerator. So I said, I'm never going to have 100 bottles of wine. That's a ridiculous number of bottles of wine to have. So
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, who would ever do that?
So I bought a 100 bottle wine refrigerator. I think within a month that was full. And then I was very quickly at about 400 bottles of wine. So then we moved houses in Los Angeles, built a 1,600 bottle wine cellar, which seemed more than sufficient to hold the 400 odd bottles I had at the time. That quickly grew out of control, filled that up, plus some, and now I'm at a point where I've got about 5,300 bottles.
Wow. And at what point did you realize that, wow, okay, now I'm like deep into it. This is out of control now.
I think around the time I passed having roughly 2,000 bottles of wine, because that was kind of a red flag or a yellow flag. Well, not a red flag, obviously, but a yellow flag where I said, no one really needs 2,000 bottles of wine, but whatever.
I mean, let's be truthful. It could have been a red flag that you just drove right through.
Yeah, that's true. That's a fair way to put that, I think. So,
Wine collectors who buy wines for drinking typically fall into two camps. Those who know what they like and go deep, and those who go broad and demonstrate a curiosity and passion for wine no matter what. We had definitely met the latter today.
I enjoy the classics, the Bordeaux's and Burgundies, but I also like those kind of off the beaten path wines. Unique, distinctive, but well made, and you can feel the heart of a winemaker when you consume the wine.
We didn't ask Whitman if he owned a baseball card collection as a kid or had dabbled in rare coins or stamps, but he seemed to have the required gene.
So I think we've talked about your collection and just the breadth of it, Whitman, but talk about your verticals. You certainly selected certain bottles that you must love, and then you have deep verticals in those. Tell me about how you go about that.
Sure. So there's a lot of wine I buy almost every year. From Chateauneuf, I buy Beaucastel, Clos de Pop, Vue d'Anjou, Vue Telegraph. From Bordeaux, I try and buy Le Las Casses every year. I usually buy a bottle of Aubryon every year. I buy a little half bottle of Yquem almost every year. My deepest vertical, though, has to be Vue Chateau Certan. I'm still looking for the VCCs from 1977, 1980, 1984, and 1987. So those four vintages of VCC I need.
All right, well, hold on. We need to stop here right now. Okay, did everybody hear that? We obviously have thousands of years out there.
Yeah.
The vintages that you are now looking for VCC are
77, 80, 84, and 87, which are profoundly terrible Bordeaux vintages. But if anyone has, for example, a 1984 VCC, leave a note in the comments, leave your email, and I'll hit you up and I'll pay whatever you want for that bottle of VCC.
Sounds like a pretty good negotiation tactic. I'll pay whatever it takes.
So looking at your cellar, one of the biggest centerpieces, in my opinion, is this whole row of 1979. What is the significance with that vintage?
Sure. So I was born in 1979. So like some wine collectors, I enjoy buying wines for my birth year, and I've got the full collection of First Gross. I have a DRC Echezot, Chapelet, Hermitage. Unfortunately, 1979 is not really a great vintage anywhere other than maybe in Champagne, and I've had some good 1979 champagnes. Whenever I see a new wine from 1979 I don't have, I always buy it and grab it up, and it's a centerpiece for a reason. I'm not sure I'll ever drink those. Every year on my birthday, though, I do always have a bottle from 1979 as a birthday celebration.
So is it fair to say that you have a lot of wines from 1979?
I think I have over 10 cases of wine from 1979. Whenever I find something, particularly if it's an odd 79 that I haven't bought before, I always try and grab it up. So the single greatest wine I've ever had was a bottle of 1979 Chateau Lafleur from Pomerol, which I drank the week that I turned 35 years old. And I always probably add a little extra boost to the birth year wines from that year.
We quickly learned that this was not a cellar built to show off. This cellar was built to utilize space to the maximum and fit the needs of the collection. Every bottle had its place and nothing was left up to chance.
Who designed the cellar?
Sure. So it was a combination effort between my ex-wife Adina and I. When we moved up to Washington, we redid the whole basement area. Adina came up with the idea of having kind of a glass down showpiece. I came up with kind of the rack design, the rack count. I ordered the racks from a company called Wine Racks America, and then the rest of the basement design was really Adina's ideas. Really, the sorting philosophy is country first. We're totally in France on this side, then region, then appellation within region, and producer within appellation. And I start at that end with Bordeaux, and within the Bordeaux, I sort by appellation. So I've got Saint Estèphe, then the wines from Pauillac, then the wines from Saint Julien, then the wines from Margaux.
This was a well-established system of Dewey Decimal level precision.
I sort by producer, so I have all my Ducru Beaucalou together, Lea of Las Casas together. Then the next chunk is Burgundy, Northern Rhone, Côte Rôtie, Hermitage, San Josef and Cornas. Then to Southern Rhone, I've got a lot of Chateauneuf de Pape, some Gigondas, and finally red wines from the Loire Valley at the end. So this side actually, so these are all half bottle splits. So it kind of tracks the organization on the other side where I've got Bordeaux, Burgundy, Rhone, then we go to Italy.
Look closely and you'll realize that every chateau, every winery is perfectly organized vertically. The OCD part of me that's normally repressed by the dominant slob part of me was clearly getting excited at this point.
So, Whitman, you didn't tell us about this back room, right?
So this is what I affectionately refer to as my overflow room. So like many wine drinkers, I don't have a drinking problem, but I do have a buying problem. So this is just extra wine that I bought over the ages that we'll probably have about 1,700 bottles in here or so. I just keep things on the floor in the cardboard. I know in my head roughly where everything is, but it's kind of it's almost like a hoarder room, like it's a crazy person room.
Not captured on camera was Whitman's ability to quickly pull bottles. By recalling the country, region, and appellation of any given bottle, he was able to hone in on the bottle's location in seconds.
You pick out a bottle on Cellar Tracker, you give me 10, if we're in this room, maybe 15 minutes, I'll find that bottle for you.
After just a short time together, it became clear that Whitman had an almost encyclopedic knowledge of wine, and it didn't seem to matter where the wine had been produced.
This is a wine from Armenia that is made from Iranian grapes. So in Iran, before the Shah, they made wine. So that's now illegal in Iran. So there were some people in Armenia snuck into Iran and illicitly removed grapes for the purposes of winemaking and then made this wine in Armenia. And to me, it's just amazing that you can have something so historic and distinctive made with grapes that are really not being utilized for their highest and best use, and that this was $80, and that you can buy this in the United States from Iran through Armenia. It just shows like the true magic of winemaking to me.
So, you know, when I was stalking you on Cellar Tracker, I was really going through the cellar and see what you had. And I found this bottle here from Uruguay.
So Uruguay, I think, is an up-and-coming wine-producing region, probably on par. I think it may eventually exceed Argentina and Chile, which are the main South American wine-producing regions. The primary grape that Uruguay is specializing in is Tannat, which is a very strong, rich, robust tannic wine. It comes from, there are a couple very obscure appellations in the southwest region of France. So we're almost on the Spanish border. Uruguay's kind of embraced this grape in the same way that Argentina did Malbec. I think it's just a tremendous, again, distinct, unique, caring, careful wine where the producers are making the investment to make a tremendously quality product.
So far in the wine tour, we had three main takeaways. First, the vast majority of his collection was in single bottles. Of his 5,250 bottles, more than 4,000 were single bottles. This is not somebody who wants to enjoy a collection of tried and true go-to favorites. This is a cellar of somebody with vast interest in wine and endless curiosity and thirst for knowledge. The second takeaway we discovered was his affinity for verticals, with collections of Hermitage, Clos de Tart, Chateau Chalon, Chateau de Chem, and VCC, among others. And the third and final takeaway was that here's a guy who had a soft spot for wines with emotional value. 1979, for example, not at top of most people's vintage list, is a wine that he buys regularly.
Yeah, it seemed like Pops was being out-nerded. Not only were there wines here from France, USA, Italy, and Spain, but there were also wines from Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay. Germany was well represented, and there were wines from the UK, Portugal, Austria, Switzerland, Greece, Hungary, Slovenia, and Armenia. New Zealand and Australia were represented along with a token bottle from Lebanon. And then, of course, things got even deeper.
Yeah, things got deeper. Once we looked at France, there were wines from Bordeaux, Burgundy, and Champagne, of course, and then Alsace and the Rhone Valley. But then there were wines from Provence, Languedoc, Loire, Jura, Corsica, Savoie, southwest France. Yeah, the breadth of this collection was really something. After talking about wines from around the globe, it was interesting that the wine that he really wanted us to try was from his home state of Washington. With over 1,000 wineries, Washington is the United States' second largest producer, with 90% of the winemakers produce less than 5,000 cases a year. It's been said that Washington wines straddle both new and old world. They carry some of the new world's ripeness of fruit with an acid and tannin structure similar to, in ways, of the old world wines. You be the judge. The wine that we got to try, Horsepower, is one of Christophe Baron's many wineries located in Washington's Walla Walla Valley.
We're here in Washington, and I wanted to share something that's uniquely Washington and unique in the world of wine. So the wines that I'm very into, Northern Rhone Syrahs, so the more savory, animalistic wines. I think Horsepower is kind of the pinnacle of that style and that expression, and they're not wines for everyone, but...
Well, I cannot tell you how excited I am about this. What about you, B?
I'm excited to try it too.
So Horsepower is a wine made by Christophe Baron. It's made in Milton Freewater, which is actually right over the Washington-Oregon border. It's organically made, and they plow the fields with these very large draft horses. So like the old Budweiser, the huge giant horses plow the fields. Christophe Baron has Cayuse, No Girls, several other labels, all right down in the Walla Walla appellation. This is about as far from a typical Napa cab, cult cab, as one could get.
So this nose is like unlike anything I've ever had.
I get seaweed, bacon fat, salt water, cured olives, black and green olives.
All right, let's do this. Cheers.
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 I cannot wait.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It tastes more like food than a wine.
This is really quite unique. And I love the olive description. I feel like there's a lot of that tapenade.
First vintage of Horsepower is 2011, so we're having the 2013 Syrah from the Tribe Vineyard. So the style's been, I think, tamped down a little bit from the first releases. The early releases really come out just unabashedly, unequivocally funky.
Yeah, because this doesn't show its age at all. I mean, I would suggest that this could last easily another 20 years and you'd be fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel the same way?
Yes, I think so. Nobody knows for sure how long these wines can age because they haven't been around that long, but the Cayuses from the early 2000s are still drinking well.
And one of the things that that I read about Horsepower and Christophe Barraud is that they are employing biodynamic farming practices, which is really not well known in the United States. It's employed by many of the kind of high-end French chateaus and wine growers.
It sometimes seems a little bit like witchcraft, I guess. We're gonna bury a cow horn full of manure in the vineyard and hope it works. But I guess, you know, the results are always in the bottle.
There might be another point of view on this. Well, Whitman, thank you so much. This has been the most amazing, both a cellar tour, but also educational experience. What about you, Bea? I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
One of the things that we want to do on this segment of cellar tours is that we want to bring a gift. I want to bring a bottle of wine to you. It was really hard to find a bottle that you didn't already have. You seem to love verticals.
I do, yes.
So in that context, I got you a wine. You already have the wine, but you do not have this vintage of the wine. And I apologize for the packaging here.
Oh,
It leaves much to be desired, but this has obviously been on the airplane. It's been in my suitcase. You're gonna need it some time, but this is our contribution to your
thank you so
cellar.
much. Oh, wow. 1982 La Mission Aubryon. Oh, this is too much. You're too kind.
So-
It's an amazing,
Yes.
amazing vintage, amazing wine. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I'm so excited. I know that you have a lot of years in your cellar. I happen to have bought a case of that, and that is the first bottle out of the case. So I had to use the crowbar and get the case open and the lid open, and that's the first bottle out of it. And just excited to be here and enjoy this experience with you.
Well, again, thank you so much. I look forward to laying this down, trying it a little bit, and putting some notes on Cellar Tracker. Awesome.
How about cheers?
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you. This is fantastic. Oh, that should be amazing. Oh, the fill line's great. That's very
Well,
nice.
if it's had any, I think it's.
I mean, that's nearly a new bottle. I mean, that's
It's pretty good.
yeah, that's awesome.
It's basically untouched